We're live? Okay, cool. And every like 30 seconds we could switch on the shots and you get that. Okay, so we're good. We're good on YouTube as well. Awesome. All right, awesome. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, wherever in the world. I'm Chef George, and today I'm going to be making Coq Au Vin. Coq Au Vin is a classic traditional French dish. Not sure what part of France. I want to say it's more the south of France. So it's a chicken stew. Back in the day, it was made with a rooster. Coq, it means rooster in French. But nowadays, we make it with chicken. It's a lot easier. To speed up this recipe, I'm using the Instapot. So this recipe is nice for cooking at home. And if you don't have an Instapot, you can still do this in the pan. But I like using the Instapot because it just goes a lot faster. So we're going to get started. Main ingredient, wine. Have that here. Chicken. All the ingredients for the recipe are on the chat on the YouTube channel. So go down in the description. The full recipe is right there. You can look it up. And then I'll be posting this also on the website soon, so that'll be up there. All right, so we're going to get started. And we're going to first get started cracking the wine. And I'm going to pour us a little glass of wine because cooking with wine is good. I'll share some with you, Mandy. If you hear me talking to a mysterious Mandy, she's in the ones and twos in the control. She'll be switching the angles, and if you post any comments or descriptions or anything you want to ask on TikTok, if you're watching live, put any comments, say what's up. Good to see you guys. Yes. Anywho. All right, so we're going to get started with our Coq Au Vin. Now that we have a glass of red wine. Cheers. If you're wondering what kind of wine is good for this recipe, French wine. Whenever you're cooking wine recipe, I always like to use the wines from the region or anything close to those wines from that region because it just kind of makes sense with the pairing. I'm using today a Cotes de Rhone Reserve. You can use a Burgundy or Bordeaux. Any of the red wines, I think will work this recipe. You can do this also with white wine as well. In the past, I've done this with white wine and red wine, half and half. So it works either way, but the traditional is you want a deep red color in your chicken. All right, so we're gonna begin. The first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna set the chicken aside for a second. First thing we're gonna start off with the bacon. So you wanna use what they call in France, lardons. Lardons is a little thicker cut bacon. The one I got here is about a 1/4 inch thick. You can go higher to 1/2 inch or even to like 3/4 of an inch thick. And then we're going to cut them into 1 inch pieces. This bacon that I'm using today is nice and smoky, and this has a black pepper crust. So it's going to add a little extra spice. So once you cut it, I like to place them in there. That way it starts getting some direct heat. This is medium heat right now. And we're going to get this nice and crispy. The fat from the bacon, when we render, if you see the word render, rendering means you're slowly cooking the fat. It's going to kind of like sweat out that fat. And that fat is going to be the fat that we're going to sear the chicken on. So we want to get as much fat out of the bacon so we can get it nice and crispy. Once it's crispy, we're going to remove the bacon, set it aside, and use that fat. Okay? So we have our bacon in the pan. While the bacon is cooking, and this is real life cooking, you always want to do something while something is cooking. We're going to start off by marinating the chicken. So just a little bit of salt and pepper. That's all it takes. You can do this overnight if you like. You can put a little salt and pepper and a little bit of red wine, a little splash of red wine. It's just going to give it a deeper color. How much wine? About a couple of tablespoons. You don't have to go crazy because we're going to save the rest for the recipe. Just a little bit, doesn't need to drown in it. And then just kind of with your hands, macerate that. Dip it in there. Immediately see how the chicken starts turning almost like a purple from the wine. And what I used today, the recipe calls for 2 to 3 pounds worth of chicken. You can just use dark meat if you like. You can do a whole chicken. What I did here, I have 2 legs and I have half a breast that I cut into 3 pieces. So I got a whole breast that I left the wing on, and then I just cut those into 3. This is nice big chunks. So what you want to do is make sure that the chickens, they're relatively the same size. So just give this a nice mix up here. Put a little more salt in the back. And a little bit of pepper. And then you want to make sure that's seasoned really nice and good. Right, so the bacon's, you can smell that in here. The bacon immediately kind of wakes up the whole room. It lets you know what's going on. I like marinating with the wine. Some people don't do. There's many different ways to make coq au vin. And this recipe is Julia Child's, one of her hits. Famous recipe. Jacques Pepin's also makes this recipe often. He has his own recipe, but this one is Julia Child's. It's one of my favorites. One of my favorite Julia Child's recipe, and this is all in honor of Women's Month. I'm honoring Julia Child as my favorite female chef. So if you missed the last cooking, live cooking, we did a crêpes Suzette. That's also on the channel, so jump on there, you'll see it. I'm gonna make a playlist and add it to all the live cooking segments that we got going on. The bacon, once it starts getting kind of a little crisping up, I have this medium high. You can start kind of flip them around. That way, it gets nice and crispy on both sides. And they'll start kind of curling up a little bit, so if you flip them, that'll prevent some of the curling. There you go. So just flip them all around. You'll start seeing that some start getting a little crispy. At this point, make sure you have handy a little plate with some paper towel, because this is where we're going to put the bacon once it's cooked. I have that ready to go, standing by here. Okay? All right, so while that's cooking, I'm going to prep a couple other items that we're going to get cooking with. The next ingredient we're going to use is an onion. You can use a Spanish onion. I'm using a white onion. This works good as well. Either one works fine. You can also do pearl onions. And those are cuter. They were hard to find. I couldn't find those. I like those. The little pain in the butt more with the peeling them, but you have to peel them. So peel your onion, and then we're going to cut that in half through the root, the little top part right here. And then I like to remove that little root. We're going to remove that. And then we're going to cut the onion into, I would say, like 1 to 1/2 inch pieces. So I'm just going to cut it, make 2 cuts across the grain. And then with the grain, I'm going to go and cut 4 cuts. And that should give me nice, fairly chunky pieces here. All right. We have our onion nice and chopped right there, ready to go. Okay, so the bacon's starting to get crisp. I'm going to start removing some of that. Let me give you a little close up here. Here, over here. Yeah, nice and crispy and bubbly. Doesn't have to be extremely crunchy, extra crispy, but you want it like cooked and seared on both sides. And shake off any of the excess fat, because that fat is good. We want that for the chicken here. And this is how you make bacon in the pan too, if you like making bacon in the pan. I like making it in the oven because it's less grease and the house smells less. But this is how you would do it. And I don't know if you can see, but in the pan, we're going to have so much excess fat, and that's going to be the fat that we're going to use to sear the chicken breast. All right, so I still have a couple pieces that need to be a little crisping up, but now the pan has plenty of room, and I'm going to start cooking the chicken as well. The bacon's going to finish up as I start searing the chicken. All right, just want to give you a little close-up of the chicken. There you go. Yeah, and I'll give you the bird's eye view too. So we're going to begin putting the chicken skin side down. You're going to get a little bit of a splatter because the fat and the liquid are going to pop off. And actually, let me take off the rest of the bacon now that it's crispy. In France, they love their bacon too. They use a lot with what they call lardons, which is a little chunkier chunks of bacon, which are great with like potatoes. You've ever had like lioness potatoes, have a little bit of chunky, beefy kind of component. Nice chew. And it enhances the flavor of this dish. So the bacon is one of the key ingredients in this dish. If you want to omit it, it's not going to be the same. All right, so let's get all the bacon out. We're going to set that bacon aside for later. All right, now let's sear our chicken. And this is exactly what you want to hear, that sizzle. That sizzle is going to remind you that we're browning. We're going to sear this. And your house right now should be getting smoky, full of all this Coq Au Vin smells right now. Now when searing, I always like to put the skin side down. Just like the bacon, we want to render, slowly cook down that fat from the skin, and it's going to start crisping up. If you have any excess wine marinade, you can dump that. You don't need to add that to the mix. Oh yeah. So I'm going to raise the heat. Now I'm going to go a little high, medium high. If you feel like it's browning too fast and it's starting to burn, you can lower it to like a medium heat. If you feel like it's not cooking up the way it needs or it's taking too long, you can turn the temperature up. And you'll start finding a happy medium. But it's going to take at least good 2 to 3 minutes on each side. All right, so I have that on high. I'm going to chop up a couple other ingredients while we wait. Garlic, 2 cloves of garlic. It's already peeled, make sure it's peeled. How many tablespoons of minced garlic will it render me? About a tablespoon and a half. So I like to remove the little root end in the back. Make sure we remove that. And use fresh garlic. I know it's very tempting to buy the jar of what they call jarlic, garlic in a jar. Don't use that. Just get some fresh garlic, give it a nice smash. Smash both of them up. Put it all together and then just give it a nice chop. Fingers up above the knife. And when holding the knife, you want to put 3 fingers on the handle and 2 fingers up here to kind of clamp up. That way you have full control of the knife. And then this hand right here, right above the tip, and then go up and down, chop, chop, chop. We're going to do a fine chop on this. It's like a small mince. Doesn't have to be too fine, but you don't want big chunks in there. The onions and the garlics are what you call your aromatics. What's going to add aroma and soul to the dish. And this dish is a very homey style country dish that is made a lot in most houses in France. So this is like your cozy kind of stew on a winter day or rainy day, or kind of hearty and comforting. I can smell the chicken starting to brown, and that's a good thing. So let's give this guy as a flip. Oh yeah, beautiful. Look at that. Beautiful, nice golden color. So once it's brown, turn it around. And if it's not fully brown, you can put it back on the skin side till it gets brown. There you go. All right, so our garlic, give it a final little chop chop. And we'll have that standing by. At this point too, make sure you have your Instant Pot ready as well. Okay. So garlic chopped up, ready to go. Set that aside. We have our onions standing by. Also have on standby a tablespoon of tomato paste, ready to go. And we're going to use some fresh herbs. We have some thyme and some bay leaves. Thyme is in the woodier kind of herbs. One of my favorite herbs because it's so tiny little leaves, but very, very distinct and delicious aroma that it adds. Great for soups, great for stews, sauces. I love that with chicken, with pork. I think it goes really good. Like if you're not a fan of oregano, thyme is a great substitute. Same with rosemary. Like rosemary, oregano, and thyme, those three herbs could be kind of interchangeable if you don't like either or. You could add some rosemary to this dish too. I think it goes really good. All right. Beautiful. So always when you're cooking, every pan has a little hot spot, so you will always, a good cook knows his pots and his oven, and he always finds the hot spot. So if you have a hot spot, try to use that hot spot to sear the chicken there. Once it's brown, you can push them to the side. Because we're going to do everything in this pot, in this one pot. So we're going to make some room for the onions. So they're going to come in right in here. Nice. All right, so one more minute. We're going to flip the other pieces, and then we'll add the onions to the mix. On TikTok, if anybody's on TikTok, what's up? How's it going, guys? Cheers to Julia Child. Perfect. All right, so most of the chicken pieces here are seared. Got this last one here. Let's get a little more color on the wing. But that's good right there. What I like to do, put all the pieces to the side. And in the middle, I left a little middle here. I'm going to cook the onions right in there. You can season with a little salt and pepper at this point too. And then have a wooden spoon handy because we are going to move the onions around. And we're going to saute them. Keep this at high heat. And we want to get those onions fully coated in all that fat, all that bacon grease, the chicken grease. And this right here, we're building on a foundation of flavors. Whenever you're making a stew or a soup, something that's going to cook for a while, 30 minutes and above, you want to build on all these layers of flavors. That's what you see in a lot of sauces. Onions is probably the most important aromatic. Adds such a delicate, beautiful aroma. Great for anything that's braised. Now, if you hear the word braised, braised means you sear the meat, you brown the meat, and then you cook it in liquid. That's a braise. Something that's going to be browned and then cooked in a stew or in some kind of liquid form. All right, so we're going to give that a couple minutes. We have our next ingredients standing by. Make sure you measure out the rest of your ingredients. We're going to need a cup and a half of red wine. We're going to need a quarter cup of cognac or brandy. Even though it's Coq Au Vin, it has a little splash of brandy. And if you cook a lot of French food, you'll notice that a lot of recipes have brandy everywhere. It's like besides wine, they love using brandy to flavor stews and soups, and it's delicious stuff. We're going to have a half a cup of chicken broth. We're going to have some parsley that we're going to chop up later for garnish, and some flour and butter, and of course our mushrooms. If you haven't cleaned them, you can clean them up. Just get a little brush and just dust them off. If you do want to rinse them in water, just rinse them really quick and then pat them dry with paper towel and just let them air dry a little bit. And after 30 minutes, they're dry again. So. All right, so the onions, you want them, see this slight caramelization. You don't need to cook them too much. We just want to get some of that brown color. When you're making like a brown stock or a brown, like a stew, something that's going to be in the darker color, you want to caramelize. And caramelizing, you get the sugars, the Maillard effect, like the chicken, that little brownness. That's going to give a different flavor than something that's just cooked on low temperature and doesn't have that colorization. All right, so at this point, we're going to add the garlic. Throw that right in there. Tomato paste. Throw that right in there. Our bay leaves and the thyme. And now we're going to saute that right in there. So mush up the tomato paste in there, mix up that garlic. This right here now, this is full flavor right now. The garlic, of course, is going to elevate that pungent garlic flavor in there. The tomato paste is key. It's going to help give this a nice body and a little bit of tartness, sweetness from the tomato paste. The herbs, of course, are going to add those nice, warm kind of flavors. And you can smell the herbs right now. And I like to saute these herbs a little bit because it just kind of brings out the aromas a little bit more when you saute them. And I'm leaving them whole because at the end I'm going to remove them. So give this a little mix up. Get that chicken in there, flavored in there. Give the pan a little toss. There's a little chef trick. You kind of like swirl around the pan with one hand, and with the other hand, you can kind of like help push things around. If things are flying out of your pan and you're making a mess, then stop doing that. Use your tongs, use your spoon, and go too crazy. All right, this is nice right here. Okay, now we're gonna add a quarter cup of brandy, the cognac. And let me show you I'm using Remy French brandy. Be careful if you have an open flame. if it catches the flame or catch on fire. And we're cooking this on high. We're still on high heat. I want to get all the cognac to touch every little part of the pan. When you add liquid to something that you sautéed, what it does, the bottom of the pan, it kind of helps release all those sticky parts, the good sticky things that will sauté from the bottom of the pan, what they call the fond in French. And the fond, all those little sticky, icky little good bits that I'm scraping off with the liquids, that's going to add so much flavor, and you don't want to lose that. And that's a little chef trick that is going to help. One, you're going to prevent anything from sticking to the pan, and it's going to help pick up all those caramelized flavors that we get from sautéing. All right, so about half of the alcohol, you want that to be cooked. And now we're going to add the wine. A cup and a half of wine. There you go. And I like to pour it right over the chicken. It's good. We're going to bring this to a boil. Should take about a minute or so. And again, stir it a couple times. You're kind of like releasing anything from the pan. And you're also marrying all the ingredients together. You're incorporating everything that we're putting together. Now this is becoming its own thing. So when you're making stews and soups and sauces, this is kind of like the science that goes behind it in marrying all these flavors. And you're going to layer up and create a beautiful sauce. Which is one of my favorite things about this recipe. The sauce itself is like, it's similar to beef bourguignon, if you ever had that, but with chicken. And you can, I like giving it a little base. Just grab your spoon and just pour a little bit of that sauce right on top. This is when they say cook with love, is this. You're putting that little extra bit of juice right on top, rotating things. You're not just turning something on and walking away. This is conscious cooking. And the best kind of cooking is the one that you really pay attention and you care for. Now the room smells like wine. The whole room smells like wine. Especially me, my face is right on it. I wish you could smell this. It smells amazing. But I also smell the hard wine, right? It's cooking down. So the alcohol is going to cook off. Whenever you're cooking with alcohol, unless you put it at the last minute and you're served right away, most of the alcohol does cook off. And what you get down is the flavor. So all this liquid is the water that's evaporating, and the wine is concentrating. So if you're going to make this, I definitely encourage you to use French wine. It's a French recipe. All right, so we're going to go about 30 more seconds, and we're going to go into the Instapot. So I'm a big fan of the Instapot, especially at home. And you know what? It also at the restaurant or for any professional event, it's very practical because, one, you eliminate time. From here, you can cook this. If you don't have an Instapot, you can cover this and let that cook for a good 20, 30 minutes. But what we're going to do now, we're going to put this in the Instapot and cook it for 7 minutes with pressure. It's practical, it's easy to use, and the Instapot is an easy set and forget kind of item. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that right there. So the last ingredient I'm going to add is the chicken broth. I'm going to put that right now. Pour that right in there. And give this an extra stir. And now we're gonna put everything into the Instapot. Everything that we just cooked, put it right in the pot. And you can use the Instapot too to saute, but I like to do this in the pan because I don't think you can fit everything perfectly in the Instapot. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of sauteing in the Instapot. I'm still, call me old school, I still like to do it in the pan and then finish it up in here. Okay, so just make sure everything's submerged in that sauce. Look at that, boom. We're gonna put that back in there, beautiful color. And where's the lid? We're gonna cook it in high. Do that 7 minutes, and we're starting now. All right, so the pan, you don't need to clean. We're gonna use the same pan. I took off all the liquid. There's still a little bit of smush or little bits of, tiny bits of, not much in there. A little bit of that grease, but it's good. That's the flavor that we want to keep around. So what we're gonna do next, I'm gonna cut up the mushrooms. Make sure that's on. So I got these nice buttered mushrooms. Buttered mushrooms are great for this recipe. You can also use baby creminis, but these are the mushrooms to use. So depending on the size, like if you have a really big one, this is semi-big, I'm gonna cut it into 4s. But for the most part, I'm gonna cut them into halves because most of them are kind of small. If they're really small, you can even leave them whole. You want a big chunk in this dish because it is a stew, and so you want a little bit of that bite. You don't want it to kind of like be mushy and small in this recipe. So you want these nice big chunks of mushrooms. They are going to shrink as you cook. So we're going to cut these up and get that ready. And I love buttered mushrooms. They're just so good with salads, stews. I mean, they're so versatile. I mean, mushrooms in general. I love mushrooms. So if you're a fan of Julia Child, make sure you also catch my other recipe that I just made, the crêpes Suzette. That was really nice, tasty. The video's already on the playlist. All right, so our mushrooms are cut. Some are quarter, most of them are halved. And I'm gonna turn the pan on. Let's go medium heat. And I'm gonna add half of the butter. So I'm gonna use half of it now because I'm gonna saute them. I'm gonna put this on high heat. Why in high heat? Because we want to sear. We want to, again, caramelize these mushrooms a little bit. Because in that same pan, we're going to make a roux, which is going to be what's going to thicken up our sauce. All right, so once that's fully melted, and high, you're going to see a little bit of bubbles. See, starting to give me a little of that sizzle. You want to hear that bubbling. Once you start hearing that, you're probably about 30 seconds from adding the mushrooms. Yeah, cooking is very intuitive. So for it to be intuitive and you to be, one with the activity, you want to use all your senses. So you want to see the smoke coming out. You want to hear that sizzle, and you want to see that there's action in the pan. The problem with sometimes working with recipes is that you follow the recipes like an engineer, and then you forget about the intuitive part. So it all comes with practice and just, being in the moment. And right now is the moment. So I see the bubbles. And I also smell the butter right now. It's smelling good, so this is a good sign to add them. All right, mushrooms right in there. I always like to toss them a little bit at the beginning because I want to make sure that they're all fully coated with the butter. And then once they're coated, you can give them a little hop around like this, or just toss them with a spoon. Make sure they are touching a flat surface, and then don't touch them for a minute or so they can start kind of caramelizing. Now while that's waiting, I'm going to chop up my parsley, because that's what we're going to garnish the dish with, and also I'm going to use a little fresh parsley because I made some I boiled some potatoes. I'm going to put some butter and add some parsley, and that's going to be the side dish to my Coq Au Vin. So you can use curly parsley. This is Italian parsley, or flat leaf. Not necessarily, they call it Italian parsley, but it's also really flat leaf. Used a lot in France as well. What I like to do is these are all just leaves. I bunch the whole thing up in my palm, make a nice tight little ball, and then I'm going to slice thin. Now when you're slicing, make sure your hand, 3 fingers here, 2 fingers here. The knife, if you're just chopping, you go up and down, right? But when you slice, you want to go forward with the front of the knife, the tip of the knife, push forward, and then go back. When you go forward, it helps kind of cut through, and that way if you go straight down, you're going to have these accordion pieces that are all stuck. So the motion is almost like the locomotion of a train. It goes forward and back. That's the technique. When cooking, you want to learn the technique, almost like learning how to do a new workout. You need to know how to do the technique before you can do the speed and the torque. Once you have the technique, then it just becomes natural. All right. Then I'm going to give it just a couple chops, just 3 or 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's good. That's ready to go. I'm going to put that here. And now I can smell the mushrooms are starting to get cooking over here. Instapot, it's doing its thing. So it normally takes a couple minutes to heat up, get its pressure going. Then it starts a timer of the 7 minutes. And then after, I turn it off, and then you want to release it. But I'll show you that in a little bit once we get to that part. Let's check on the mushrooms. Beautiful. So you're just going to give them a little stir. Make sure you want here. See it there. Get a nice little color, caramelization there. See if you can see, I don't know if you can see it up here. Yeah, nice little brown. So the mushrooms are probably have another good minute in there. Give them a toss up, and again, just kind of let them be. You want direct surface. Whenever you want to caramelize, you want to saute something. And saute in French means to jump. So in order to jump, you need to have high heat. Sauteing requires a pan with really high heat and a little bit of fat, oil or butter in this case. And that way everything's kind of jumping in the pan. It's not sticking, it's sauteing, almost like how I walk. It's just like dancing in the pan. And you're also kind of cooking out all the moisture. Mushrooms have a lot of moisture in the inside. You know, they absorb. They're like sponges. They have all this water. So you're drying them out, getting all that liquid out, and that's why you hear all that sizzling. Is all that steam, all that water coming out of them. Okay. So we have a parsley. We have that going on. Like I said, I have my little potatoes. I boiled some. I'm going to show you up here. I just put these little fingerling potatoes. You can use any kind of potatoes. Cut them up, put them in water, a little bit of salt. Bring them to a boil and simmer for 10 minutes till they're soft. Then keep them in their warm water. And before serving, I like to drain the water, add a little butter and parsley, and then just warm them up. All right. So these mushrooms look good. All right, so the next step that we're going to do here, we're going to lower the heat. Let's do like a medium low. And I'm going to push the mushrooms to the side. And I'm going to add the remaining butter. To the pan. There you go. Toss them again, that butter. I mean, this alone right here is really nice side dish right here. Butter mushrooms. Naya loves these. All right, so next we're going to add some flour. We're going to make a roux. A roux is another French word that describes what we're doing here. And a roux is a component equals amounts of fat to flour. And it's going to be our thickening agent that's going to thicken the sauce. So we melted the butter. And now we're going to whisk into that. I like to add the flour a little bit at a time so you don't get too many lumps. Okay. And I'm doing it all right there in the same pan with the mushrooms. You don't need to remove the mushrooms. And I'm going to turn off the heat right now. So it should look like a little bit of a chunky kind of paste. So this is my variation on Julia's recipe. There was, what she does is she cooks everything in the pan. The only difference, she does not have an Instant Pot, but I'm pretty sure that if she was up here now in the year 2024, she would have one. Because if you look at her videos back in the day, she was using high-end equipment for the time. And she was also a big fan of innovation and using all these tools. Like, why not use all these tools? So what she would do is what will be like a beurre manier. She would get the raw butter with the flour, mix it together almost like a Play-Doh. And then those little balls, you add them to the broth, and that's going to thicken up. That's another old school French way of thickening the sauces. But here I'm keeping it all in the pan. It's a little easier and whatnot. So we still have 2 minutes or so in the Instant Pot. What I want to show you while we wait, I'm going to get those little butters, a little extra. I'm going to strain that. And just show you. Right here. We're just going to add a little bit of butter, a couple tablespoons in there, some parsley, a little salt, and pepper. And this is an easy side dish that you can make at home. Just boil potatoes, drain the water, make sure they're nice and warm, and then just toss them in fresh parsley, a little bit of butter. You can put a little olive oil as well in there. And just in that room temperature and in its own heat, they're going to start melting. gonna set that aside. All right, got a beeping. Here we go. Instant Pot, ready to go. All right, so you gotta be careful. Once the Instant Pot is ready, it needs to release all this pressure in there. It's called a pressure cooker because it contains all that steam and all that pressure, and that's why it cuts down the cooking time by almost like 5-7 times. But you gotta be very careful because there's a lot of pressure. So if you open this without letting the steam out, it can be an explosion, literally. So you can slightly use the vent. What I like to do, because sometimes it releases a lot of liquid, I like to put a towel over the little spout and then just let that vent. Now be careful with that steam when it vents. Don't put your hand over it because that's hot steam. And steam is one of the worst burns that you can have, next to having caramelized sugar all over your skin. Right? If you've been there, done that, you know what I'm talking about. That hurts. You'll be jumping on your toes. So I'm gonna get ready for the chicken. I'm excited for that. All right, the baking plate, you can just remove that paper towel and leave that bacon there. And we're gonna keep this plate because we're gonna remove the chicken from the pot. The actual chicken pieces we're gonna remove, set aside in the plate, and then the broth, I'm gonna add that to our pan here, to our roux, which is gonna thicken up, but I'll show you in a second. Make sure you keep your whisk handy. We are done chopping stuff. Keep your wooden spoon handy. Keep the tongs around. And have your glass handy as well. Now you gotta wait, because I've got in a rush. I'm like, you don't mess around with the Instant Pot. You want to make sure you fully release all the steam. And I tell you this because I did it one time. I was rushing and I was like, okay, I really scared myself. Could have been a lot worse. You know, oh.
If you didn't use an Instant Pot, how would you do it? You do it all in the pan?
Yeah, so if you're not using the Instant Pot, that's not your thing. Before doing this mushroom step, you will cook the chicken in the pan, put a lid on it, and cook it for covered, simmer it on medium heat for about 20 to 30 minutes. To the chicken, it's about 160 degrees internally. And then you will do the same thing. You will remove, either use another pot or remove everything into a pot, a different pot, and then do the same step that I just did with the mushrooms. And then continue with what I'm going to do next. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. You're watching this. Thank you for watching, man. Thank you for cooking with me. We have a bunch of cool videos. Leave any comments and questions in the comments. I do reply them personally myself. So if you have any cooking questions, ask them, and I'll be answering all that good stuff. Come on, chicken. Come on, little chicken. Coq Au Vin, Coq Au Vin. Almost there. I can hear the steam now. It's like a light sigh now.
How long does it take to release the steam?
Yeah, to release the steam, it takes a couple minutes. It's almost ready. I'm just being extra cautious. An extra little sip of wine. now we're getting to the good part. Now we're going to thicken up the sauce and really put it all together. There you go. The good thing with the Instant Pot too, which I like better than the old school pressure cookers, is that it actually locks up if it's too much pressure. It won't actually let you open it up. You got to really put some pressure on if you want to do that. So we wait.
How many, the recipe serves how many?
So the recipe serves, I say 2 to 3. It can serve up to 4. You can add more chicken without really adding more of the other ingredients, and you can stretch it to 4. Like if you do a whole chicken, that can serve a family of 4, but it depends on the family of 4.
So you'd add more chicken without doubling up the ingredients?
Yeah, you could just add a couple more pounds of chicken with the same amount of ingredients, and you'll be fine. You'll see that you have so much sauce that you probably might even have extra sauce. But this is a great dish, like mashed potatoes, even with rice. Even probably with the noodles would be nice, but I like potatoes. I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy.
How would Julia serve it?
Julia does it with the little boiled potatoes with butter. All right. Let's do this. Moment of truth. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to remove the chicken pieces onto a plate. Just carefully fish them out with your tongue. And this smells so good right here. It almost smells like it's ready to go. But what we're going to do next is thicken up the sauce by reducing it a little bit with the flour and just kind of putting it all together. All right, so we're going to turn the pan back on. Medium heat's good. And just very carefully with the towel, remove your ingredients from the Instant Pot. Get your whisk handy. And we're going to let's pour half of that in there now. I like to add half because little by little I can whisk in. If I add the whole amount of broth, it's harder to whisk and kind of break up all those lumps of flour. And you'll see when the sauce heats up, that's when it thickens up the most. When it comes to a boil, that's going to be at this maximum thickness. So you don't want to have this on high at first. You'll see it starts kind of thickening it up, almost like a gravy. Add the rest in there. Okay, so let's whisk. Take about 30 seconds or so of whisking. Up to a minute. This just helps remove any lumps of flour. And what we're going to do now, we're going to cook off the raw flour flavor in the sauce. Whenever you do a roux, you want to cook it off for a good 10 to 15 minutes. Just going to help let the flour kind of bloom, absorb all that liquid, and really thicken it up nice.
That has to cook for 15 minutes?
10 to 15 minutes.
Without the chicken in it?
No, with the chicken. We're going to cook this with the chicken in there now. Right now, the chicken's on the side right now because I wanted to take the time to whisk the flour really well. And it's hard to do that when the chicken is there. Like Julia's original recipe, she does it with the chicken in there. But I find that it's really hard to really get a proper whisk with all those big chunks of chicken in there. It's already tricky with these little chunks in here. Okay, but this is good. No more lumps. Now we're gonna add everything back in here. The bacon, the chicken, little pieces of thyme, all that good stuff in here. I'm gonna add this back in here. We're gonna turn this up to high. We're gonna bring this to a boil. And we bring this to a boil, like I was saying, whenever you're making a roux, it's gonna get really, really thick when it comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, then we're gonna lower that to a medium, medium-high. You wanna simmer. Simmers, there's action, but it's not like a boil that everything's just kind of going bananas and you don't want everything popping out. And of course, give this occasional stirs, and back to making some love to this. You want to baste. Grab a little bit of sauce and just pour that right on top of the chicken. All right, so starting to bubble, especially here in the middle. That means it's boiling. I'll give it another minute, and then we'll lower that. But definitely, I love to baste the chicken as we go. Flip them around. That's what's gonna keep them nice and moist and delicious and juicy with all the flavors. You want the chicken to absorb that sauce. All right, bring it to a simmer. Use your tongs too, those are easier to help you flip these guys around. You see how quick the Instapot gets cooking, that the chicken's starting to be almost fall apart. And that's what you want. Yeah, the color, see the hues, like beautiful, like deep red in there. That's when you marinate it. I think when you marinate it and sear it, it just kind of like sears in those tints from the actual wine, from the grape. And again, just keep dousing it with that sauce. Oh yeah, this is smelling good. This is a good time now to taste it. We're gonna see what it tastes like, see if it needs a little salt or pepper. Here, I have a spoon here.
If you were having a dinner party, what would be like 3 courses, like an appetizer? How would you pair this?
Okay, so the question was if I was having a dinner party and this would be the main dish, right? How would I pair this, or how would I set up my whole meal? If I'm serving this, I can go 2 ways. First, let me try this. A little bit of salt for that. So, if I was making coq au vin, I mean, there's 2 ways I would do this. If it's a casual Tuesday or Wednesday, it's just for me and the fam. This is it. The way I'm going to do it today, with the potatoes, a glass of wine, maybe a little salad. On its own is great. If I want to make this a French night with my friends and have a couple couples or whatever, have some guests over or the fam, and make a nice full French meal, then you could start with a French onion soup. Or first, we could start with some appetizers, maybe some canapes, maybe some little tea sandwiches with smoked salmon on it. That's nice. Of course, you're gonna start with a cocktail, nice martini. What was that drink we made with Julia last one? That was really nice too. The upside down martini. So definitely nice welcome drink. I would do a vol au vent, which is like a little pastry basket with some escargot, some snails. If you guys don't like snails, then you can do maybe some duck confit inside. So definitely start with a little canapé. It gets the French party started. Then I would do a soup, the French onion soup. I think a French onion soup would be a nice starter for French feast. Like if you're doing Bastille Day, that'd be nice. French onion soup, uh, of course, wine. Maybe start off with a Chablis with that, or if you want to go red, a Cotes de Rhone would be nice with the soup. And then main course, our Coq Au Vin, serve that with a nice Burgundy. And then for dessert, you know me, a souffle. I'm gonna end this with a souffle, probably a chocolate souffle, or if I'm gonna go along with Julia Child's full menu, crêpe Suzette. That would be the perfect pairing. But this is almost ready. I'm gonna remove now the bay leaf and the thyme. Put those over here. Maybe a paper towel. The sauce is pretty thick right now. It's just the way I like it. That's the bay leaf. Or you can leave them in there, fish them out later. All right, so let's give this sauce another little taste. You know, if you're ever worried about double dipping and all that stuff, just grab 1 spoon and then pour the sauce into your tasting spoon. Really nice. The flour like really thick in there perfectly. So you want a nice gravy-like thickness. I don't know if you can see that in there, but yeah, you can see it on the wooden spoon right here. So you see, it's kind of gravy-like. It kind of oozes down. It coats the spoon. This is what you want. This is what you call in France the point of nappé. Nappé is that little creamy, silky kind of vibe. All right. Final taste. Fantastic. Just a little bit more pepper. And I love putting black pepper, a lot extra black pepper on this dish. I think it just kind of cuts the richness. Boom. And we're going to get ready to plate up. So I'm going to give the chicken pieces a final mix up with the sauce. This is fantastic right here. All right. Let me remove the cutting board. Give you a nice... Let's do our plate up. How about that? Start with the pieces of Coq Au Vin right there. Let's give them 3 pieces. Why not? Look at that. Beautiful. And then we're going to finish it up with the sauce. You get the smokiness from the lardons, from the bacon chunks. The sauce is like delicious, like rich, deep wine flavor. And this is Coq Au Vin is almost the equivalent of like a, what's homie down here in the States, meatloaf or beef stew. Like a beef stew, but with chicken. And then we're gonna serve a little potatoes. Just like that. And our parsley. Here we go, guys. This is our Coq Au Vin. Let's give you a little close up here. Boom, look at that. Beautiful on the plate. Let me give you a close up over here too. Boom. Look at that. Chunks of nice mushrooms and bacon in there. The chicken is pretty much falling off the bone. The potatoes are a perfect touch. Nice little pop to the plate. And you know what? I'm going to taste a little piece. Try a little piece of chicken here. Look at that. Pretty much just pushing it with a fork kind of falls off right here. Grab a little mushroom in there. Mmm. Fantastic Coq Au Vin. One of Julia Chow's top dishes. Also one of my favorites as well, French dishes. And it was great cooking this dish. Again, happy National Women's Month. Women's History Month. It's Women's Month, right? Every month is Women's Month, yes. Yes, my wife just reminded me that every month is Women's Month, and it's true. Thank you guys again. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. See you at the next class.